Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a classic coin that's sitting in jars and old collections all across America. Let's talk about a coin you've probably held in your hand without a second thought, the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it seems completely ordinary, just another piece of old copper change. But this specific coin sits at the center of one of the most intriguing stories in American numismatics, a story that blends wartime history, minting errors, and the potential for a life-changing discovery. It represents a moment frozen in time, a last breath of the old monetary system before the demands of global conflict changed everything. What looks mundane could, in an extraordinarily rare instance, be anything but. To understand why this penny is special, we need to step back into the world of 1942. The United States was reeling from the attack on Pearl Harbor just months before, and the nation was mobilizing for total war on an unprecedented scale. Every industry, every resource, every ounce of material was being scrutinized for its contribution to the war effort. Factories that made cars began making tanks, and the U.S. Mint was not immune to this sweeping conversion. Its role was critical. Producing the coinage needed to keep the domestic economy functioning while complying with new, severe material restrictions. Within this context, the Lincoln wheat penny, first introduced in 1909, was a staple of American commerce. For decades, its production followed a simple pattern to denote its origin. Coins struck at the branch mints in Denver and San Francisco bore a small D or Mintmark on the obverse, below the date. The main mint in Philadelphia, however, traditionally used no mint mark at all. Its status as the primary facility meant its coins needed no distinguishing letter. So a 1942 cent with no mint mark is, on paper, simply a product of the Philadelphia Mint. And in 1942, Philadelphia produced a staggering number of them. The official mintage figure for the 1942 Philadelphia cent is 657,796,000. That's over 500 million coins. This massive output means that in circulated condition, worn from decades of use, with faded details and soft edges, this coin is one of the most common wheat pennies you can find. It fills coin rolls, sits in bulk buckets at coin shops, and forms the background clutter of inherited collections. Its value in this state is minimal, often just a few cents, essentially tied to its base metal content. For most collectors, a well-worn 1942 Philadelphia cent is a filler coin, an inexpensive piece used to complete a date set. However, the coin takes on a different character in higher grades. If you find one that was saved in brilliant, uncirculated condition, with its original luster, sharp details on Lincoln's beard and the wheat stalks on the reverse, it becomes a more desirable collector's item. Such coins, preserved in rolls or mint bags, tell a story of intentional saving, perhaps by someone who sensed the coming change. In mint state, the value can range from $1 for a lower-end example to $5 or more for a perfectly preserved, richly toned specimen. It's a beautiful example of classic American coin design, but it's not considered rare. The plot thickens dramatically when we consider the strategic material crisis of World War II. Copper, the primary component of the 1-cent coin, was suddenly indispensable for the war machine. It was needed for artillery shell casings, bullet jackets, electrical wiring in ships and planes, and countless other military applications. The government launched massive scrap drives, asking citizens to donate pots, pans, and pennies to help back the attack. The mint itself faced a direct order: find an alternative for the penny to free up copper for ammunition. This urgent mandate led to a historic and abrupt change in composition. After the 1942 production run, the mint developed a new planchet, or blank, made from zinc-coated steel. This gave the 1943 cents their distinctive silvery gray appearance and magnetic properties. These steelies are a famous chapter in coin history, a tangible symbol of wartime sacrifice. But the transition between the old copper alloy and the new steel wasn't a clean, instant switchover at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. The minting process is messy, with planchets stored in large bins and fed into presses. It is within this messy transition that the legend was born. Sometime in late 1942, as the Philadelphia Mint was beginning to produce and test the new steel planchets for the upcoming year, a small number of these blank steel discs somehow found their way into the bins holding the traditional copper alloy planchets for the 1942 cent. A mint worker fed them into the stamping presses, which were still using the 1942 dated dies. The powerful press came down and struck a 1942 design onto a steel planchet, creating a profound error. This coin, a 1942 dated Lincoln cent on a steel planchet, is known as the 1942 shell case cent. The name shell case cent is poetically apt, directly linking the coin's anomalous composition to the reason for its existence. The copper saved was literally destined to become artillery shells. These error coins were never supposed to leave the mint. Quality control measures, while not as stringent as today, were designed to catch such mistakes. But coins are small, production was frenetic, and a handful of these steel 1942 cents slipped through. They entered circulation mixed in with the billions of normal copper cents, waiting to be discovered by an incredibly observant person. This brings us to the core question for anyone holding a 1942 no Mintmark penny. How do you know if yours is the common copper version or the legendary steel error? The differences are not obvious to the naked eye, especially if the steel coin has toned or rusted over the decades, taking on a dark, coppery appearance. You cannot rely on color alone. A steel cent that has been in circulation for a while can look surprisingly like a dirty copper coin. This visual deception is why so many people may have overlooked one. The first and most critical test is the magnet test. This is simple, non-destructive, and definitive. Find a strong magnet. A rare earth neodymium magnet is ideal, but a good fridge magnet will work. Bring the magnet close to your 1942 penny. A normal copper alloy 1942 cent will show absolutely no attraction. The magnet will not stick. The metals in the traditional alloy are not ferromagnetic. However, if your 1942 penny is one of the steel errors, it will leap to the magnet or hold firmly to it. The steel core is highly magnetic. This test is the initial gatekeeper. If your coin passes the magnet test, the next step is the weight test. Precision is key here. A normal 1942 copper cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams. A 1942 steel cent weighs significantly less, about 2.7 grams. That's a difference of over 0.4 grams, which is substantial for a coin this small. On a sensitive digital scale, the discrepancy is clear. In your hand, the steel cent will feel noticeably lighter than a regular copper penny. If you have a confirmed 1943 steel cent for comparison, the weight should be almost identical. Let's be unequivocally clear about the odds. The regular 1942 Philadelphia cent had a mintage in the hundreds of millions. The number of authenticated 1942 Philadelphia steel cents is estimated to be between only 30 and 40 coins in total. Some experts believe the number may be even lower. This isn't just rare, it's one of the great American numismatic rarities. For comparison, finding a 1909 SVDB cent in circulation would be a miracle, but there are still hundreds of thousands of those. The 1942 steel cent exists in a realm of scarcity that places it among coinage royalty. The value of such a coin reflects its legendary status and extreme rarity. We must separate the two coins entirely. The common 1942 Philadelphia copper cent in average circulated condition is worth perhaps 10 to 25 cents to a collector. The 1942 Philadelphia steel cent, once authenticated and graded by a top-tier service like PCGS or NGC, is worth a minimum of $75,000 to $100,000, even in lower grades. Examples in higher grades have shattered records at auction. One particularly fine specimen sold for over $400,000. This isn't just a valuable coin, it's a six-figure historical artifact. Now, we must address the elephant in the room: counterfeits and alterations. The fame of the 1942 steel cent has inevitably attracted forgers. The most common fake involves taking a common 1943 steel cent, a coin worth maybe 50 cents, and somehow altering its date to look like a 1942. This can be done crudely or with surprising skill. Another method involves copper plating a 1943 steel cent to mimic the appearance of a copper coin that is mysteriously magnetic. These fakes are why authentication is not a suggestion. It is an absolute requirement. If you perform the magnet and weight tests and have a strong candidate, you must handle it with extreme care. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to clean, polish, or improve the coin's appearance. Any abrasion, no matter how gentle, will permanently damage its surface and reduce its value and authenticity in the eyes of experts. Hold the coin only by its edges. The best practice is to immediately place it in a protective holder, like a clean coin flip made of archival quality mylar, to prevent further wear or environmental damage. Your next step is to seek professional, third-party authentication and grading. The two most respected companies in the hobby are the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC. Submitting a coin of this potential value requires using their highest level of service, which includes enhanced security and insurance. The cost for this service is a few $100s, but it is an essential investment. The encapsulation and label from PCGS or NGC will authenticate the coin as genuine, grade its condition, and make it marketable to serious collectors and auction houses. Imagine the story behind such a discovery. Perhaps it was spent at a corner store in 1943, caught in a handful of change and dropped into a piggy bank. Maybe it sat unnoticed in a roll of pennies for 70 years, or rested at the bottom of a dresser drawer. The moment of discovery, hearing that click as it snaps to a magnet, seeing the abnormal weight on the scale, must be electrifying. It represents a direct, physical link to a precise moment of error in a Philadelphia mint factory during the most consequential war in modern history. Beyond the financial windfall, owning such a coin means being a custodian of a profound error. It is a mistake that should have been melted down, a piece of history that was never meant to exist. It contradicts the official record and stands as a testament to human fallibility even in the most systematic processes. For a collector, it is a king coin, the ultimate prize in a series, the centerpiece that transforms an entire collection. It has a name, a story, and a personality that a common coin simply cannot match. It's important to manage expectations realistically. The chance that the 1942 no Mintmark penny you have right now is a steel error is astronomically small. For every one genuine example, there are tens of millions of normal copper coins. The purpose of this knowledge is not to send everyone into a frenzied search for a $500,000 penny, but to appreciate the layers of history in our pocket chain, and to understand the mechanisms that can create numismatic legends. It sharpens your eye and deepens your appreciation for the hobby. This story also highlights a crucial principle in coin collecting: condition and rarity are everything. A coin in mint state is always more desirable than a worn one, but a rare error in any condition is a treasure. The 1942 steel cent could be heavily circulated, scratched, and darkened, and it would still command a tremendous price because of its fundamental nature. This teaches collectors to look beyond mere wear and to understand the underlying properties and history of a coin. So what should you do with this information? The first step is simple: get a magnet. A small rare earth magnet is an inexpensive and essential tool for any coin examiner. Start going through any old jars of coins, inherited collections, or even bank rolls you might acquire. Check every 1942 penny, but also check every 1943 penny to ensure it's steel and not the equally rare 1943 copper cent. Turn it into a systematic hunt. The process itself is fun and educational, a way to touch history. When examining coins, develop a routine. Look at the date first, then check for a mint mark. For 1942, a D has its own story and value, but we're focused on the no mint mark Philadelphia issue. Then, without assuming anything based on color, apply the magnet. Listen for that decisive pull. If you get a hit, isolate the coin, handle it carefully, and proceed to the weight test if possible. Document everything. Even if 99.9% of the time the result is ordinary, the process makes you a better, more observant collector. Consider sharing the hunt with family. Ask older relatives if they have any old coin collections tucked away. The story of the 1942 steel penny is a fantastic way to connect generations, blending history, science, and the thrill of potential discovery. You're not just looking for money, you're looking for a needle in a haystack that tells a story about your country's past. It's a conversation starter and a shared adventure. In the broader landscape of coin errors, the 1942 steel cent stands as a classic example of a wrong planchet error. It's a coin struck on a blank intended for another denomination or year. Such errors happen occasionally throughout minting history, but few have the perfect storm of historical context and extreme rarity that this one does. It is often the first major error new collectors learn about, a gateway into the fascinating and complex world of mint mistakes. To conclude, the humble 1942 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark embodies a duality. For the vast majority of people, it is a common piece of wartime-era copper, a souvenir of the greatest generation that is nice to find but not financially significant. Its value lies in its historical resonance as one of the last pre-steel cents. Yet for an infinitesimally small number of these coins, they are something else entirely. Accidental relics, numismatic ghosts, and objects of immense desire. This duality is what makes coin collecting so endlessly engaging. It trains you to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, to understand that context is everything, and that every object has a story waiting to be decoded. The next time you see a jar of old pennies, you'll look at them differently. You'll know that one of them might not be what it seems, that it might hold a secret from 1942, waiting for its moment to be discovered. So keep your eyes open and your magnet ready. The greatest finds often come when you least expect them. The pursuit is about the knowledge gained, the history appreciated, and the community of collectors who share in the excitement of the hunt. Whether you find a common 1942 cent or the Holy Grail itself, you are participating in a tradition of preservation and discovery. Thank you for taking this deep dive into the story of the 1942 no mint mark penny. I hope it has given you a new perspective on the coins in your possession and inspired you to look closer. If you have any coin stories or discoveries, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more explorations into numismatic history, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Until next time, happy hunting and may your finds be fascinating.